In the time before the wick of John burned with vengeance over the death of a precious innocent, when the weapon of lethality and egregious anti-Semitism of Melly Gibson's held sway, and the hardest of the dying ones, Bruce Willie, who is indeed everybody's shit. What about Cop Out? Cop Out was the shit. Shut up. Boo. It was in this time, before Wesley Snipes was a vampire and Denzel was the equalizer, that Rocky and Rambo ruled the box office, that the one true king of badassery and action films rose from the obscure mists of Thal, Austria. The most ripped-itted dude who ever lifted a heavy thing to make their muscles big waddled stiffly onto the silver screen, looking like a Greek god. Specifically, Hercules in Manhattan. And sounding like a dude with a mouthful of Greek meatballs, so they had to dub him with a ridiculous voiceover. Like this one. Arnold the Schwarzenegger. And this is Arnold Schwarzenegger Month.
Get upset on the internet. You're assaulted.
Hey everybody, welcome to Retro Station 1989. I'm Commander Dan, the commander and lone human inhabitant of the Retro Station. And this is License to Play, where we evaluate licensed retro games. And what's a licensed game, you might be wondering? Well, it's a game based on movies, TV, comic books, oh hell, breakfast cereal, fast food. Let's just say if it had a license and it was a retro game, we evaluate it and tell you if it's worth playing or not. And folks, this is ARNIE month. We're going to look at games about one of the greatest earthlings of all time. A hero, a warlord, a barbarian, a king, a comedic genius, and a mother. Yeah, he had a baby once in a movie. We're celebrating the retro games licensed on properties starring our hero, well, my hero, Arnold Schwarzenegger. This week we're going to jump on a title that I love, and most of the world mocks and hates with like a passion. But I'm here to defend my liege, Arnie, to the death. But first, let us tell thee of the tale of Arnold's high adventure. Because when they made this movie, I'm pretty sure everyone was high. Arnold Alois Schwarzenegger, born in 1947, in post-war Austria, worked on his bodybuilding throughout his youth, and because of his resilient nature and ripped physique, was known as the Austrian Oak. Also, because he was comprised of at least 75% hops, if the documentary Pumping Iron is to be believed. Dude drinks beer like people breathe in that thing. He started at 15 and finally became Mr. Universe. At whatever age, which is why I'm bringing him to the attention of our sponsors on Planet X. I'm not sure how many other species and alien races he dominated to win the title of Mr. Universe, but I'm positive he made them look like girly men, okay? Arnold's first major motion picture was Hercules in New York, because dude was strong as hell. What else was strong? His accent, and his consonant game on that last name. So they renamed him Arnold Strong and had his voice redubbed, because without that, he sounded like someone reading Klingon through a mouthful of sauerkraut. But dude was charismatic, and he made so many more movies. The Terminator series, Commando, Red Heat, Twins, the Conan films, the Expendables films, Red Sonja, so many more. His name is synonymous with action films. He is indeed one of the greatest action heroes. One of the pillars of the action genre. He is eternal. He's the beginning. And you could probably even say, he's the last action hero. Yeah! Yeah? Yeah, I mean, my stellar joke aside, this movie is one of Arnie's most polarizing movies ever. Most people hate this movie. They didn't understand it when they saw it, and what they saw, they wouldn't like anyway. And, you know, if you aren't a hardcore action fan, most of the movie's going to go right over your head. I mean, they came in there expecting a hard-hitting action flick, which it is, and it isn't, actually. They really weren't expecting to have a sidekick, or basic, like, anything else in the movie that's all the wild shit, like the animated cat, weren't expecting that. The T-1000, weren't expecting that. I mean, this is one of my favorite action movies of all time, because it is both a love letter and a stink bomb in the mailbox of action movies. Cambot Jr., fire up the footage and let's dig into The Last Action Hero. So let's talk briefly about some flicks that I like and the games that we've talked about previously that go along with them. You notice that when we talk licensed video games, we often have to talk about movies. And since Kramer vs. Kramer and Gandhi are amazing films but very shitty ideas for video games, you see more action movies on this list being adopted for our beloved gaming hobby. Karate Kid, we talked about this one and I like it. Lethal Weapon, Gremlins 2, fantastic. Goonies, amazing. Star Wars Episode 1, hey, shut up, I like that. But the kind of movies I like? They don't make video games about them, unless you count Bruce Willis Apocalypse starring Bruce Willis. It wasn't a movie, but I love the idea that one day it could have became a gigantic B-movie grindhouse shitbag action movie starring Bruce Willis. And by the way, shout out to Bruce Willis, what a career. I'm sorry that you've retired. But this is gut check time, where I admit that my movie tastes are about pedestrian as hell. I mean, I love Con Air. Yeah, you can talk about John Woo all day long, but give me Gary Busey in drag fighting fake-ass Steven Seagal in Under Siege. There's a movie for every mood. But action flicks that are off base, weird, that's what I really love. Streets of Fire. You get to see Willem Dafoe as a greaser biker gang leader have a sledgehammer fight for the sake of the city? Yeah, okay, sure. Show me Driver. Who gives a shit? You like superhero movies? Try on Darkman. Alright? That's this director of The Evil Dead directing The Shadow, but on crank. So when the director of Die Hard with a Vengeance comes around with a script like Shane Black's take on Last Action Hero, Black, the guy who wrote Last Boy Scout, Iron Man 3, and Lethal Weapon, you know I'm going to be there, son. Last Action Hero, a film that was insane in its concept. A kid travels into the movies, and it's just about the plot roasting the idea, concepts, and cliches of action movies to Arnold Schwarzenegger's face. That was amazing. Infinitely cool. And of course, it was a disaster. And here we sit. Now, I'll talk about the movie next, but you folks gotta understand that this thing was a real stink burger when it came out. The people in 1993 who saw this thing, in the previews, like when people were being invited in to watch the movie before it got released, Sony Pictures burned the test cards. Yeah, like they were the Necronomicon. They burned them, but word got out anyway. And people stayed away from the flick in droves. This thing was a bomb before it got to the theaters. It was crazy. And it was a real failure, too. It lost Sony $25 million. It wasn't until home video that the movie did any business at all and caught on with an audience. Well, except for me. I sat there in the theater watching this movie, and I loved it. From the second it starts with the theme of the movie, I was hooked. AC/DC kills it in this movie. But let's talk about the movie a little bit more and a little bit about the marketing, because that $25 million, I think I know where it went, Sony, and it wasn't to people not coming to see this movie. Because there's just a couple things that you did for this movie, Sony, that were just insane.
Call 1-900-9-ROCKET. That's 1-900-976-2538 to record a message to be launched into outer space. $3.50 per call. For official rules or to enter by mail, write SMI, Box 28103, Atlanta, Georgia, 30358. No purchase necessary. Offer ends May 15th, 1993.
Can you believe that shit? Not the bit of hubris before this flick came out. You know, there's a lot of it, okay? They also put up a giant inflatable Arnold in New York and splattered the guy's face on every surface that would fit it. Buses, bus stops, subways, everywhere. They gambled a ton on this thing being an incredible success. They were gonna launch a freaking rocket to the moon with your messages about this movie in it. And believe me, it was insane. And yes, I did call the number. And yes, I sent a message about how rad this movie was gonna be. I don't think that rocket ever launched. I want my money back, and I want that recording back of me telling everyone that Last Action Hero was gonna be rad. And when this movie did not meet expectations, oof. But let's pretend we live in the universe where it kicked ass at the box office, and people didn't pretend that it sucked, or that they didn't get it, or just outright didn't like it because it wasn't an action movie. And let's take a first look, okay, pretending with fresh eyes at one of my favorite flicks of all time, okay? We begin with ARNIE. doing badass stuff. Oh wait, no, we begin with Danny Madigan, whose single mom worries about his obsession with movies and living in a fantasy world because the real world sucks. The kid believes that only Arnold Schwarzenegger exists as a point of inspiration. Sounds like fandom to me. But Danny is friends with a projectionist and theater owner who runs one of the last picture houses in New York's Times Square area. That's what it looks like anyway. It looks like he runs an old grindhouse, like an old theater that became a grindhouse, basically. And their favorites seem to be Jack Slater action movies starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. Think Lethal Weapon, but there's only one Lethal Weapon, and it's Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Jack Slater's movies are just called Jack Slater movies. Like Jack Slater kills bad guys, or what have you. The movies are loud, balls-to-the-wall action fest, and maybe a little bit goddamn ridiculous. You know, my kind of ridiculous. The new Jack Slater's coming out, and Danny is hyped. And he's offered a seat at the print check. Now, I was a projectionist, and when a movie is built up, you gotta check the print on the night before it premieres, so the old dude here isn't being skeevy, he's just being the kid's buddy. But because most movie reviewers online these days don't know shit about cinemas, movies, projectionists, or anything else, or the history of same, they pretend like, that's just weird. Anyways, I'm going to throw a staff picks about why online reviewing of movies kind of sucks out there. But for now, Robert Prosky, great character actor, hands a kid a golden ticket. Because this is a storybook kind of tale, and he tells him that tearing it will take him into the world of whatever movie he's watching. Which is precisely what happens. Danny Madigan. He's a scrappy, plucky kid. Perfect sidekick material for a hard-ass action hero. That basically becomes a sidekick due to being in the world of movies, you know? Which is something that most moviegoers about 7 pretty much hate. Anyone above 7 years old, we pretty much hate people like Danny Madigan. Anyone above 7. Looking at you, Anakin. Sorry, buddy. Anyway, Danny meets Jack Slater in the world of Jack Slater and has 2 problems. 1, he's in movie world. 2, he's in movie world and California. 3, okay, so he has 3 problems, including these guys. Right there is a joke that people would get if they were actually action movie fans. That's Al Leong. He's in everything that's rad. Oh, you'll learn. Anyway, Danny tries to prove that this is the movie world to Arnold Schwarzenegger's character Jack Slater, and that Jack is actually Arnold Schwarzenegger, which allows for some pretty funny moments. And the one gag that was pretty hysterical when I saw it back in '93. Stallone and Arnie were rivals for a long time, and then opened Planet Hollywood together, which is like a Hard Rock Cafe, but for douchey movies and junk. So the plot thickens when Jack Slater's newest movie, which is kind of weak compared to the rest of his movies, kind of a rehash, reveals its plot. Jack's relative, trust me, the movie goes into it. I can't remember who this guy is supposed to be. It's killed by a gangster to lure Jack into an honestly kind of clever movie moment, but wouldn't work in real life, which is why people who are used to watching regular Arnold movies hate this movie. It's the kind of thing shitty reviewers use to pretend like the movie is terrible, and that terrible kind of action schlock movie, the movie's mocking and pretending to be for the sake of this kid being in a crazy fake movie. Anyway, pretending not to understand irony, sarcasm, and other forms of sardonic communication in movies, that's the internet reviewer's stock in trade, I guess. Sorry, rant over. Anyway, the plot twists when the main bad guy's henchman steals the golden ticket after killing off the main bad guy and escapes into the really real world, where Jack Slater chases him with Danny. Now they're back in the really real world, Danny's problems are reduced by 1, and the movie has this moment where the new main bad guy realizes the real world sucks buttholes of varying sizes. And he can just kill and no one gives a shit. I mean, I don't know that we've heard of anything like that recently. I mean, that really serves the movie's sense of, this is all a joke mostly. And he just shoots the guy and goes, I shot someone and I meant to do it. And if you don't get why that's funny, again, I get it. Some people were born with their sense of humor firmly up their butts. That's okay. If that's you, grab a stick and unstick your sense of humor from your butthole. Because you're going to love this movie, man. And the scene with Jack Slater explaining the torment of being a fictional character, it's great. However, it's Arnie delivering it. So people probably didn't take it seriously enough. And it's actually a really heartfelt scene. When he explains to the kid that, oh, really, my life sucking like this is entertainment for you, but you wrote me to be miserable just so I can shoot people? Killing people is what you like? And it's like, it's such a good looking the audience in the face commentary. Action, comedy, in-jokes about action movies themselves and about the production of action movies. This movie has it all if you're an action flick fan. But like I said before, this movie was surrounded by hubris on a level that was astonishing, even for coked-out 90s Hollywood. They even commissioned a Super Nintendo game to be based on the movie, which was not exactly overseen as you think it may have ought to have been, considering they were going to send a frickin' rocket to the moon with messages about ARNIE on it. They kind of didn't pay attention to this game at all. Last Action Hero for the Super Nintendo. Here's the game. It came out for Super Nintendo, Genesis, Game Gear, the NES, the Game Boy, Amiga, MS-DOS. It was developed for the consoles by Bits. All right, they're a studio and a plague upon the gamer world, the likes of which most uninitiated would believe LJN to be. Everyone believes that LJN is so very bad, but Bits? Because if LJN are laughing, joking numbnuts, Bits are buttery whole butts, but ignorant. Bits are terrible at making video games. That's it. And they're worse than I am at making analogies. You know what I'm saying? And if you can believe that, okay, that's how bad they are about licensed properties. Anyway, this game could be the game. Could be the game that bucks the trend, right? Could be a pivotal move that brings Bits out of the darkness of being a license shredder and happiness devourer into something maybe decent, right? But I'm betting not.
Commander Dan, this movie is one of the most intriguing of the action films I watched for Action Month. It's a parody of action films, while itself becoming a parody of action films.
Right! You know, like one of them figure-8 dealies. What's it called? A nude Mobius.
You mean a Mobius strip?
Whatever. It's a naked old man in a figure-8. It's endless and kind of horrid, and seriously not what you were expecting when you thought you were going to go play something fun.
Gross. You realize I control your oxygen, right?
Oh, sorry, Margot. I forgot your imagery systems give you perfect understanding of metaphors. I apologize.
Apology accepted.
Cambot Jr., let's fire up the evaluation. And everyone, brace yourselves. This is Last Action Hero. And aside from some fair sprite work, you've now seen all of Last Action Hero. I'm not kidding. I don't know why, but check this out. This game is basically 4 levels of punching, no guns for ARNIE, and a couple driving stages which are passable, I guess. You know, this game plays like when they create a fake video game for a TV or movie that's not a real game. Like something they go, oh, I love this game. And you're watching and you're like, that's not a real game. It's like the creators were instructed to create a game based on Last Action Hero. Then halfway through, Last Action Hero came out and shit the bed. And well, I guess now they're working on a game called Last Action Hero. Based on Last Action Hero. Which no one will want. So I guess this is the effort you see when somebody knows that what they're making is already a pre-bomb. Look, I scored my copy from Video Game Exchange at the Midwest Gaming Classic. Big ups to the owner. It was $3 damn. Well done, sir. In a day where people are paying $30 for Super Mario World, this should give you a glimpse into how god-awful this thing is. The first level takes place at the school where ARNIE fought the Ripper, who has taken a bunch of elementary schoolers hostage. It's a good animation on the boss, but holy god is this thing boring. This game is like filling out your taxes. No, it's like filling out someone else's taxes with a really shit job for practice. The game is like 3 enemies. Suit guy, baseball cap guy, baseball bat guy, gun guy. And ARNIE doesn't use a gun. Do you understand? The main theme written by AC/DC for this frickin' movie is Big Gun. And you know what? ARNIE pulled a Sigourney Weaver and insisted the game not feature any guns at all. And this is what he said. Feels that if children are constantly subjected to these violent kinds of images on the screen, they will identify with the violence, with all of it, and project it through to their real lives. Okay. That's Arnold Schwarzenegger, but this is also Arnold Schwarzenegger. Let's take a look at a couple of his movies. Yep. Here's the one where he's a fucking kindergarten teacher. So it seems like no guns is not really his thing. Then he ran for governor. And this no guns bullshit finally makes sense to me. He went, what? What is this, Cambot? He ran as a Republican. And no guns? Maybe Arnie's just out of his goddamn mind. Anyway, the game ends on a boss battle that features a guy throwing his exploding eyeballs at Arnold Schwarzenegger. And on any other day, in any other game, that would be rad as fudge crackers. In this game, it is neither boss nor much of a battle. And that brings us to the most important question.
Who is my daddy, and what does he do?
No. The real question. Does Last Action Hero SNES have a license to play?
Commander Dan, may I?
I appreciate the sentiment, Margot, but allow me, please, to put it short, no. To put it long, no! This piece of shit deserves nothing but torment and destruction. I'd like to skip this son of a bitch across the surface of a water reclamation plant and see it explode into a cess tank with poo and poo juice everywhere. Or shoot out an airlock, or any number of other horrible things. I hate this. But this one time, I don't normally destroy video games, but this son of a bitch, this right here, you know what, Margot? What do you think should happen to Last Action Hero on the Super Nintendo?
Frozen in stasis for all time.
Agreed. Damn, that's cold. You don't know from good jokes. Anyway, so no, Last Action Hero is garbage. Avoid it at all costs. If you find one, do everyone a favor and lock it up in stasis for all time, or burn it, or throw it in a river. It sucks. Now, moving on, we are going to continue ARNIE month with a game that I actually have some hope for. And if you can guess what it is down below, you can win yourself a no prize. I'll give you a hint. You know, I can't remember what the hint was. That's very strange. Or is it? That's your hint. All right, guess down below. If you win, you get a no prize. Same thing goes. If you already won a no prize, no prize for you. But if you haven't, Commander Dan will fire something down to you on Earth. Maybe this hot turd of a video game will fire it down on you. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. Thanks for thumbs upping, and thanks for all the great conversation about the videos. I appreciate everyone over on Facebook talking about this. I appreciate everybody everywhere coming to visit over on Twitch, RetroStation 1989. If you like what you see, give me a thumbs up. It helps me know if you like the content or don't. And please subscribe to the channel if you get a chance. That also helps. I can't believe we're already at a little over 400 subscribers. That's pretty amazing, folks. So please, enjoy the show. And you don't need to do either, but I'd appreciate if you did both. But more than anything else, more than what I've said just now, what I will say in the future, what I've said in the past, always remember to stay retro. Peace.
Get upset on the internet. You're a salt adult. You're a salt adult. Get upset on the internet. You're a salt adult. Throwing out a hissy fit, your views ain't in the millions, and every up and comer is a threat to what you're dealing. And instead of getting better, you just spout upon your